Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Sports Mouth Podcast with your host, Dominick Lorenz. And the trio is back together from our days at Halo's Heaven. Cole Bailey, the third member of our team, is back with us. Cole, how you doing? Tell the viewers a little bit about yourself.
Doing good, man. Like Dominick said, I was at Halo's Heaven. Went on with these guys from August until March, and excited to be back talking Angels baseball again. Took one episode off. I was a little busy last time, but we got the gang back together again.
Yes, the trio is back together. And as mentioned, David, how are you doing today?
Doing great. The road trip was a nice surprise. Put me in a pretty good mood.
Yeah, I think as we record this here on April the 20th, right after Shohei Ohtani flirts with perfection in Houston. He goes 6 innings and picks up the W, his first of the season, tying a career with 12 strikeouts. And we'll get to that in just a moment. But I think with a good road trip, Angels go 5-2 on this Texas two-step road trip. They win 3 of 4 against the Texas Rangers, 2 of 3 against their rival Houston Astros. It was no better to get on this podcast and get together and talk about great Angels baseball that we have seen over the past week. Before we get into today's game, I would just like to talk to David directly. Let's recall some predictions that we had last week. I felt we were very good. We both agreed Angels would take 3 of 4 in Houston. We were correct. Then, we both agreed that we take 1 of 3 in Houston. It ended up being 2 of 3. So for me, that's just gravy at that point.
Right.
You said the Angels would win when Ohtani pitches. You were correct. I was wrong on that sense. But the thing I was happy most with, I said Ohtani would come out of this road trip with 2 to 4 home runs. Ohtani has got 3 dingers this year, and that's smack dab in the middle of our prediction. So I'd say for the first edition of the Sportsmouth podcast, talking Angels baseball, our predictor has done pretty well for ourselves. David, how do you feel about being a future Angels baseball predictions?
Well, it's the team's a little bit easier now to predict that they're on a roll. So that's I feel pretty good about the upcoming series. The last series is kind of a shocker after the road trip, because the Texas road trip didn't start out great. And then all of a sudden the start of game 2 was pretty nasty. And then it just all of a sudden turned around, and the teams kind of replicated that second half of that game production up until this point. Baseball's such a hard sport to predict, but we were really close. We felt that they would, they of course performed better than we thought they would, but they still at least matched expectations. So, going forward, I think all 3 of us feel pretty good about the upcoming series. Good mood, good vibes.
The vibes continue, and the weird connection, I would say, between predictions and the first thing we're going to talk about is the offense that the Angels produced during this road trip. It's funny that the offense started rolling on something David and I did not predict. It was not on our prediction bingo card. It was Joe Madden intentionally walking Corey Seager with the bases loaded. After that move, and after the Austin Warren balk, from the inning after that and up until the end of the game tonight in Houston, the Angels offense was as hot as can be, scoring 5 or more runs in 6 of the 7 games. And the offense is just looking great right now. So if anybody had a bases loaded intentional walk to Corey Seager, getting the Barry Bonds treatment on their bingo card, go to Vegas. Congratulations for you. But Cole, I'll bring you in for the first time in this. What do you think of the Angels offense in Texas, in Houston? Big pivotal road trip, and they get the job done for the first time in a long time and get off to a good 8-5 start to the season.
Yeah, it's been really encouraging what the offense was able to do this series, because we all know that they kind of came out flat in those on that first homestand. Even in those 2 they won in Miami. But that all changed, man. Like, they were hitting the crap out of the ball this road trip. And what stood out to me was that they did it in a bunch of different ways. Like, you were talking about that game where they intentionally walked Seager. That was the game where they hit 5 home runs in one game, and they were just, every other batter was hitting one out of the park. But then we also saw a couple games on this road trip where it was just like keeping the line moving, like single, walk, double, walk. It was just like on multiple occasions they were just passing the buck on to the next person. It's just like they've shown that they have multiple different ways that they can succeed as an offense, either whether it be through the long ball or whether it be through like just stringing together base hits. So that was the most encouraging part of the whole road trip to me, is that they finally came alive, and they were doing it in ways that we hadn't seen before in ways that there's more than one of them. So that's what I liked.
This is the type of team that I think Joe Madden talked about last year with his whole theme of play like it's 1985. I think this is the Angel team that's playing like it's 1985. The scrappy base hitting, the stolen bases, the crafty from top to bottom, 1 to 9, getting on base, getting walks, which we saw a lot today. 2 of the 6 Angel runs this afternoon were on bases loaded walks. So looking at a lot of pitches and forcing the opposing pitchers to go deep into counts. And we saw today, Ohtani couldn't even make it out of the first inning. He had 35 plus pitches. So the Angels are doing the right things at the plate. And looking at some offensive numbers for the Angels, first things first, it's good to have Taylor Ward back. He's stabilizing the outfield right now with somewhat of the inconsistencies that we're seeing from Joe Adell, but he had a pretty good road trip. The unfortunate hit by pitch that landed Mike Trout, not on the IL, but 3-day vacation in Houston with a somewhat sore / bruised hand from Sunday afternoon. And he brings a different style of bat to the order, and you can put him anywhere 1 to 9. His first couple of games back, he's batting .316 with a home run and RBI, 4 runs scored, getting a couple clutch singles and doubles to get on base and to start some rallies. So it's good to see Taylor Ward back. Who would have thought, as the 3 of us had talked about this before we started recording, 13 games in the season, Brandon Marsh is your team leader in RBIs with 11 and a .323 batting average. And as mentioned before, Shohei Ohtani brings the power back in Texas, not only at the plate, but on the mound. So between those 3 points, David, I'll bring you into this. What do you like about the Angels lineup that's made them consistent? And should Joe Madden be playing with the lineup when, maybe not when Trout gets back, because we know he's automatically going to be in the lineup 24/7, but how should Joe Madden play with a good thing right now that's happening for the Halos?
Right now, you can definitely see the plate discipline got a lot better on this trip as opposed to the homestand. Like, they're not swinging at really bad stuff anymore, and they're taking pitches and drawing walks, and that's going from top to bottom of the lineup. Everyone is up in a lot better on that front. And with Marsh as hot as he is, I think he's got to be playing every day right now. And when Trout comes back, you can maybe play with the Adell Ward thing, or you maybe bring. I mean, it sucks taking the bats away from Marsh with how great he's been right now. But like you guys said, I think Ward deserves an everyday spot, and you kind of have to do pitching matchups by that sense. It's almost like a philosophical change from the lineup we're seeing right now, and the young guys are leading the way by all accounts. So I think that's infectious. Trout should be very excited to get back in this lineup the way they're seeing the ball and hitting right now. So managing that platoon in the outfield, I think he's got the mindset of giving Marsh and Adell one of the two the day off, depending on the pitching matchup, and that's probably the way to go for right now, unless Ward has like a serious slump or something like that, or barring another injury. But yeah, you can't tinker too much. I think that platoon's the way to go, even with how hot Marsh has been. But when assessing his and Adell's playing time, I think Marsh has to have the edge right now, just because he's hitting the cover off the ball and he's seeing it so well.
Yeah, and you can't mess with a good thing. And the Angels lineup has been nothing but a good thing. And I'll repeat it again. 5 or more runs in 6 of the 7 games on this road trip. They've got multi-hit games from a lot of players top to bottom. So, don't tinker with the lineup if it's working 100% of the time.
Right.
And with the contributions from Marsh and Ward, just those 2 guys, it almost shines a light and makes GM Perry Manassian look like a genius in the sense that, okay, we kind of understand now why you DFA'd Justin Upton. Marsh has completely taken the advantage in left field and even in center a little bit, with Mike Trout being out a couple games here and there. Adell's taken opportunities here and there. Taylor Ward has most definitely done that as well. So if they can consistently play like that, it makes Manassian's move of Upton being knocked off the roster a much clearer picture, and especially with the overhaul in the infield, with right now David Fletcher being out, Velasquez has looked very well at shortstop, Tyler Wade has looked good defensively at second base, and Matt Duffy, he's being utilized at first base more than second and short because his bat has been pretty productive as well, Jack Mayfield. So there's a lot of positive movement in this Angels offense right now. And here's a couple stats for you. And you guys can say true or false if you thought this was going to happen at the beginning of the year. But so far, I like where this team is going. They're tied in baseball with the Atlanta Braves with 16 home runs as a team. They're also tied with the Dodgers in baseball with 11 stolen bases and tied third overall in Major League Baseball with 110 hits. Cole, this might sound like a rambling on point, but the Angels offense looks much better in week 2 than it did in week 1. Is it just maybe first week jitters, a shortened spring training? Now they've got their footing in and they're just getting hot at the right time, winning 7 of 9.
We expected the offense to be a strong point of this team going in, so it's not too surprising to me to see them like thriving at least past the first week of the season. But I think what surprised me is just like how many people are contributing to this success. Like their depth has been pretty incredible just looking at the stats. Like you mentioned some of the guys in the infield. Matt Duffy's hitting 364, Jack Mayfield 360, Tyler Wade's at like 320. Andrew Velasquez hasn't really been hitting, but he's been incredible with the glove. And then you have all the outfielders, so where Ward is, like you said, Ward's doing really good. Marsh is doing amazing. Adele, he's finding his power stroke, even if he's still striking out a lot. So I think the depth is just a lot, or at least so far, it's looked a lot better than we envisioned. And I think it causes some problems, but it causes some good problems because you got a lot of guys that are worthy of some playing time with not too many spots for them. But I think that's the main thing that sticks out to me is just how many places they're getting this contribution from. And that allows them to rest some guys if they want to. Like we've seen Trout miss this time and they haven't really missed a beat. Rendon missed a few games because he had that stomach bug as well, and they didn't really miss a beat there either. So it's just the pure number of contributions that they're getting is pretty encouraging so far, to say the least.
And they're doing it without truly Mike Trout and, as you said, Anthony Rendon. Even though Rendon has contributed a little bit extra with Trout being out the last 3 games, and his average is only at 200 right now. Mike Trout's only at 267. Trout only has 1 home run, or 2 home runs at this point in the season. So it's not like Trout's carrying this team and the rest of the lineup is struggling. It is a whole team effort right now. So offensively, the Angels are in a very good spot, and it makes them look they're set to compete for this AL West. I know Houston's still, I would say, the team to beat when healthy and when everything is, on a roll. Again, Jose Altuve is on the injured list right now with a hamstring strain, so they're going to lose him for a little bit of time. But this was an opportunity to take advantage. The Angels are not going to see the Houston Astros until July. So you got the rest of April, all of May, and all of June, and half of July post All-Star break before you even see Houston again. And I think at that point, you're going to see maybe 2 completely different teams evolving through the season. So offensively, the Angels are at a great spot. Now let's rotate it a little bit pitching wise. You had some good starts, especially from Shohei Ohtani today. 6 shutout innings, gave up only 1 hit. He was perfect through 5 1/3. He ties a career high in Major League Baseball with 12. He did have 16 strikeout performance in Japan, but Ohtani looked like he was on a completely different level today from the first batter when he got Jeremy Pena to strike out swinging on a slider far and away and a nice block by Max Stassi.
Yeah, he did that a couple of times today.
That slider, that backdoor slider was working perfectly, following up with that splitter. Sandoval has looked pretty good. He's had some command issues, but hasn't given up an earned run yet this year. Syndergaard's been lights out. And then Lorenzen did have a little bit of a hiccup against Houston. He got himself in some trouble and couldn't get out of it. And that was the one lone loss at Houston. So just looking at the 3, at least the 2 big guys, Ohtani and Syndergaard, that are the forefront of the staff right now. David, is there something brewing in the water in the Angels pitching staff right now that Matt Wise has something got going on in the right direction? Because 2 workhorses that just look dialed in on the mound.
Syndergaard looks healthy. His velocity is not there, but I remember he said after his last start, that he feels like he's pitching and not just throwing the ball, and so he'll take that. So he's got the confidence there, the commands there, stuff there, and the velocity eventually will catch up. But so far, he hasn't really needed it. And then Ohtani, we all know he has the stuff. As long as he's locating, he's golden. Like no one's going to touch him. So you got those 2 at the top of the rotation. We're already looking really, really good. And then you go to Lorenzen, who's still kind of feeling his way as a starter after being a reliever for so long. And we've seen the growing pains so far. Hasn't been perfect, but we've seen that he can handle it. And then you look at like Suarez and Sandoval and Detmers, and there's youth. There's a lot of talent and there's youth. So I think Wiles been playing a lot with those guys. The command obviously needs to be worked on, but their stuff is so good. So I think when it comes to rotation, the fact that they've successful isn't necessarily surprising because we've seen how good they can be, and they all deserve to be major leaguers and starters in this league. And they've all had pretty solid starts to the season. So I think it's just Wise continuing to develop the young guys, and it's gonna that 6-man rotation is gonna continue to be so deep as the season progresses, especially as these guys keep getting experience.
I think the 6-man rotation that Joe Madden has instilled in this team for the last couple of seasons because Ohtani, and back then it was because Ohtani, once he got pulled, he couldn't bat anymore. But now with the Ohtani rule, he can hit and pitch no problem in every game that he participates in. I think command is always going to be something for any pitcher in Major League Baseball that's always a focal point. And I think having that extra day in the rotation helps young guys like Detmers, Sandoval, and Suarez take that extra day to look at some film, talk to the coaches, and iron out some things between starts that maybe gives them trouble. And I think we saw in Texas, Detmers and Suarez, in one inning, they can look sharp. 1, 2, 3, strike out 2 of 3, and have no problem. But then they have that one hiccup inning that throws off the whole game and the whole line score, and kind of back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back type mentality. So with Detmers, Suarez, and Sandoval still working through the growing pains, this is a topic that I definitely want to throw to Cole here for a second, because the three of us all offseason were, we all knew the Angels needed pitching, and they really addressed the back end of the bullpen. And with Tepera, Loup, Archie Bradley, and Raisel Iglesias, the 4 pitchers they signed to that bullpen, with as strong as the 4 of them have been together all season long, you can afford 4-inning performances from Detmers, Sandoval, and Suarez, or even other guys, because you feel very confident that you can get guys in the back end of your bullpen that can throw a good quality inning, or if you need them to throw 1 1/3, 1 2/3 multi-innings, they can get that done as well. So Loup, Tepera, Bradley, Iglesias combining for 22 1/3 innings pitch and a 2.78 ERA. It's about time. Cole, tell me great things about Tepera, Loup, Bradley, and Iglesias, because it's been fantastic to watch so far.
I haven't felt this confident in an Angels bullpen in a very, very long time. We were talking about it a little bit before we started recording, but I think Iglesias' only run given up was the home run against Miami the one day, and he still got the save. Tepera has only given up, did we say he hasn't given up a hit since those 2 runs he gave up
that's
on
what I'm
opening day?
saying.
Yeah, he hasn't given up a single
just
hit since opening day, and then Loup hasn't given up a single hit at all, and he's walked like 1 batter. So it's just incredible, like an incredible feeling just to be able to say, all right, once we get to the 6th inning, we can just throw out these 3 guys, 7, 8, 9, and then if you have a cushion there, you feel pretty confident that you're going to walk out with the W, which is not something they've had in a long time. It allows the starters a little more leeway. They can not be as sharp as we maybe want them to, but if they can limit the damage to maybe 3 or 4 runs, and then the offense keeps hitting like it has been, where they average 6 runs per game on this road trip, then you can still realistically have a lead to be able to pass off to those guys and feel confident that it gets done. So it's just very reassuring for us watching, and the starters that are going that may not have their best stuff, and even the lineup. It feels like if we can just get enough runs to have a lead late in the game, we can just pass it off and be fine. So it's a very big weight off our collective shoulders that's been there for many, many years now.
And it's also it's also indicative of what the future of Angels baseball could be. As long as Shohei Ohtani at least is in the rotation, it looks like they're going to go, 6 pitchers in the starting rotation. That's not really going to attract a lot of aces who are looking for innings. So what's the substitution? You have a really strong bullpen, and that's where some big bullpen guys are going to want to be like, this is a team I could join. This is my opportunity. So moving forward, we could see a whole philosophical change in the Angels, where we go from, wanting that from looking for that ace to now just bolstering the bullpen every year with that 6-man rotation. And frankly, that's music to my ears.
That it's a good problem to have, I think, when you look at it from that perspective. Yes, aces aren't probably going to want to come to the Angels full flockingly because they're not going to get the innings. But if you're a
Right.
back end of the bullpen type pitcher, and I'll repeat this again, Tepera, Loup, Bradley, and Iglesias, those are probably 4 of the top 7 or 8 relievers that were on the market this past offseason. Manassian got all of them. Tepera and Loup were multi-year deals, as well as Raisel Iglesias with the big 4-year deal. And Archie Bradley was a late addition for a 1-year deal, but still, you got some quality and veteran arms that have been there, done that before, and can teach a young set of guys. This is how you do it. This is how you become top in the American League, top in Major League Baseball, and perfect your craft in a different sense. Now, what I have seen, and this is going to backpedal just for a moment back to the starting rotation, Cole mentioned that pitchers escaping jams a little bit or getting out of problem innings to at least get to the bullpen. You saw it Tuesday night with Sandoval. He had a rough 4th inning, but he was able to wiggle out of it. Michael Lorenzen, unfortunately, couldn't do that the night before, and Ohtani couldn't do that the first game in that Texas series. But Detmers, Suarez, and Sandoval have had a way of getting into some trouble, but just when you think the floodgates are going to open and the Angels are going to go from a 2-run deficit to maybe 5 or 6, they find some way to just do enough to get the job done and then let the bullpen take off and do what they have to do. The bullpen's in a good spot. Go for it, Cole.
It's just a matter of keeping things close. Like, I think we've seen a lot in recent years where a starter will get into trouble and they just can't get out of it, to where we see these like 5 or 6 run innings. And by that point, it's like, well, the game's already kind of out of hand already. So you're not really giving your lineup or your bullpen a chance to get you back into it. Whereas what we've seen, like, I know Suarez and Sandoval, I think in particular, they didn't really have their best stuff this last road trip, but I know Suarez finished his outing. I think he gave up 3 earned runs, and Sandoval obviously only gave up 1 run and it wasn't earned, even though they didn't have their best stuff. So it's just a matter of keeping things close, which we haven't seen in a while, which is what's been at least encouraging to me. Like, obviously you don't want them to be getting into jams and having to leave in the 4th inning, but just being able to keep it a game and not just letting things spiral completely out of control.
And thinking more on the lines of the bullpen, this is something that David and I talked about in the last episode. The first week of Angels baseball was, again, we bring back the prediction part of what we did last week. Nobody had the intentional walk with bases loaded on the bingo card. Who would have thought back-to-back appearances, Mike Myers comes in with multiple inherited runners and gets out of a jam in Texas and in Houston? Did we have that on the bingo card, David? Because I don't think we did.
No.
No.
Yeah,
Not even remotely
I was at the game where he gave up the home run to Jazz Chisholm, and after watching that, I would not have guessed that. No.
Yeah. So,
but that's the thing too. Like,
it's a
even
weird
past the top
situation.
3 guys, but even past the last 3 guys that we talked about, Loup, Tepera, Iglesias, they've still had some pretty good like contributors. Like, I know Oliver Ortega has been like a pretty big surprise so far. He's been pretty solid. Yeah. Myers has had a couple good outings in a row. Like, it's not just those guys in the back.
Butcher's on his way back to the show too, so they'll be getting
he's pitching in Salt Lake right now. So it's like, it's not even a situation where you have 3 or 4 guys in the very back and then the rest of the bullpen is like a gas can. Like, you still have guys that have had high points this season, like even past those guys.
It's a wild factor to me because the Angels we get to talk about how the Angels now have a plethora of arms to go through. It's not like we're straining to get whoever's left. Now, it's going to be tough when Buttrie's ready. Does Berea go back to AAA? He's out of options. So do they run that risk? There's a lot of rotational roster moves that could happen, especially when May 1st hits and the active rosters go down from 28 back to the normal 26. So that could be a key contributor into this entire conversation. But when thinking about the bullpen, I do want to give a little quick shout out to, he was a friend of the podcast when we were all with Halos Heaven. He made his debut on Monday night, even in the loss to the Astros. But lefty Kenny Rosenberg, he comes up for his one night only special before going back to Salt Lake. He went a full inning. Yes, he did give up a run, but he did have his first major league strikeout as well. So cheers to Kenny Rosenberg on his major league debut. Him and I had talked about that in the offseason, and he was, if he was in AAA all year, he was fine with it. If he got the call up to the Angels, if it was at home at Angel Stadium or on the road, he was ready for the call. And I would say in a big situation on the Astros home opener with 40,000 plus in attendance, he did a very, very good job in his major league debut, especially, unfortunately, in an Angels loss. But the wild thing I want to see here for the Angels pitching staff, can we all, the three of us, sit here, close our eyes for a minute and imagine what happens when Detmers, Sandoval, and Suarez are pitching at the level of Ohtani and Syndergaard at the same time? Like, all six are on at the same time, as well as the bullpen's on at the same time. Like, I know the Angels are always inconsistent, like one night pitching's on, but the offense is off, and it never coincides. Could this year be the first time in a long time that we get a cohesive, good hitting, good pitching, good relief pitching for like a month at a time?
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit before we went live as well, but we all don't really feel that those young guys like Sandoval, Suarez, Detmers are that far off either. Like, Sandoval's stuff still looks incredible. It's just a matter of limiting the walks. That's been his main issue, even though hasn't given up an earned run. It's just he's not been able to go very deep into game because he's walking people. But that's pretty much his only issue so far. Suarez is the same way, and he struggled a little bit putting hitters ahead. But I think that's stuff that they can eventually figure out, because it's not like it's only one thing. So if they can like even get their command a little bit more in order, just a little bit, I think we're going to start to see some better things from them going forward.
Yeah, it's a great thing. David, any comments on that? Can the Angels at one time for a good chunk of time, not just one road trip or one homestand, but for a full month, have perfect cohesion and strong consistency on all three phases of the game?
Yes, if health permitting, right, at the end of the season, after these guys are more seasoned, the end of the year could be really, really strong for this team. I still expect, because they're young and they're still going through growing pains, I still expect ups and downs, at least in the short term. But there's no kind of experience like major league experience. So these guys are going to start to figure it out this season. And I think if everyone's healthy at the end of the year, and the Angels are, playing competitive baseball, we could really see this team put it together. It all like it does every season. It all depends on health.
And we've seen it so far. There is a different vibe in this dugout, clubhouse, on the field, wherever you want to look at it. First, you have players like Archie Bradley saying, this is a squad since day one that I got here that feels like we're going deep in the playoffs. He said,
Phil Nevin said the same thing.
Joe Madden said the same thing. Phil Nevin said the same thing. And then you also look at the camaraderie on this team. Every time there's a home run, they got the pimpin' Stetson cowboy hat rolling through the dugout.
I love the cowboy hat so much. I love it.
Like, there's just an overall vibe about this team that is trending in a positive direction, even in the losses this year. There's a moment or two in those losses where the vibe on the team is still light. It's still playful. It's still strong, positive vibes. And again, yes, we're only 2 weeks in the season and things can change in June and July for better or for worse for any for any team in Major League Baseball. But the vibe on this team is different right now that we've had at least within the last 3 or 4 seasons, which is a good problem to have. Now, Mike Trout already tweeted they're on the flight. They're coming back home tonight. They get a day off tomorrow. Friday night opens up a 7-game homestand, 3 against the Baltimore Orioles, 4 against the Cleveland Guardians. Yes, you heard me correct. It's not the Cleveland Indians anymore. It is the Cleveland Guardians. It's going to be an interesting homestand. I feel before this road trip, I kind of looked past this road trip and said, okay, let's look back when the Angels are home next. If this road trip doesn't go great, the Angels might have to win 5-6 on this, homestand against Baltimore and Cleveland. But with the success of this road trip, you might be able to, of course, would I like 5 of 6, of course, but maybe you gave yourself a game or 2 of cushion just in case if something wild and wacky happens, someone doesn't have a good pitching performance or the offense goes quiet. But this is another round of our weekly Angel predictions. And now Cole gets to bring his predictions to the table for the bingo card. Ooh. David and I had our, successes last week, but let's see. So 3 against Baltimore, 4 against Cleveland. Baltimore hasn't really given away their pitching matchups yet, but I know for the Cleveland series, they're projected to have Bieber, McKenzie, Plesac, and Quantrill, their top 4 guys on the bump at Angel Stadium. So that can pose a difficult matchup. For me, I'll start off with my predictions. I got the Angels winning 2 of 3 against Baltimore or a sweep. I feel the Angels have, with the way they played the last week, they can easily do that, no problem at all. And then I can see a split of that 4-game series against the Cleveland Guardians, winning 2 of 4, just because Cleveland's pitching has been so dynamic and they've kind of outperformed what a lot of people thought they would so far this season. So that could be a great matchup. I also want to say all 3 starters in that Baltimore series will each have 5 or more quality innings with a minimum of 4 strikeouts apiece. And Mike Trout will return in this homestand, and he will bat at least 4 to 6 RBIs this homestand. I know that one's a little bold move there, Cotton, on that one, because Trout's been out for a couple of days, so it might take him a little time to get back in the swing of things. That's my predictions. A couple of them are a little wild. So Cole, you are the newcomer to this prediction bingo card game. What do you think, wins and losses for the series, and any offensive or pitching predictions? The floor is yours.
So I'm looking at the Baltimore series right here. Their starters look like it's going to be Bruce Zimmerman Friday, Spencer Watkins Saturday, Chris Ellis Sunday. I think, like you said, 2 or 3. I think that should be the benchmark there. Asking for a sweep is tough because those are just very hard. And Baltimore, even though they're not very talented, they have been a little bit scrappy this year. Like, I know they just took 2 or 3 from the Yankees. I think I'll go 2 or 3 there, just because predicting a sweep is kind of hard to do. Cleveland, I'd like to say 3 or 4, but Cleveland has been pretty tough this year. I think they have the best run differential in the AL right now, or maybe the whole league. Oh no, it's third behind the Dodgers and Giants. So they've been playing pretty good ball. I'd like to say 3 or 4. I will also say 2-2 split there. So 2-3 against Baltimore, 2-2 against Cleveland would mean a 4-3 homestand. That would put them at 4 games above 500 going into that next road trip. I think that's a pretty safe bet, but it's the one I'll go to. As of the others, I think Friday's the day Reed Detmers puts together his first really good start of the year. I think he pitched a little better than his line would say the other day, because his line was a little ugly, but I think he pitched decently well. So I think this is the start he puts it together in that one. I'll say Brandon Marsh keeps it going on this path, because I think he's been putting together some very nice at-bats, at least on this road trip. So I think he stays hot, and I'll say he leads the Angels in hits this series.
Okay, so pretty similar on the records, a little different pitching and hitting. David, welcome back to Predictors Bingo. What do you got this time for us?
Oh, I'm annoying because I agree with you guys on this stuff. Yeah, I think they take 2 or 3 from Baltimore. Although I'm gonna say they lose the opener. Zimmerman's had a pretty good start to the season. He's got no runs, 9 innings, 10 Ks, so he's been solid. But I think they take the last 2. And then the Cleveland series, that one to me is really, really interesting, because you have that Plesac Ohtani matchup. I think that could be a really good pitchers duel. But otherwise, I think we're actually going to get a surprisingly offensive series, not in terms of a lot of runs being scored. But Bieber Lorenzen on that Monday kind of seems like a little bit of a mismatch, so I could see that as a loss. And then the other ones are almost toss-ups. So I'm going with a split against Cleveland. They're just on fire right now. It's really hard to discount them until they cool off, but they haven't. And Baltimore's got a good lineup. They're not a great team, but they got some dudes. So none of this is going to be easy. I think it's going to be a challenging 7-game homestand regardless. But yeah, I'm going to go with you guys. I say they take 2 from Baltimore, 2 from Cleveland. And I'm really leaning toward that Ohtani please that game. I think that one's going to be a late inning dramatics for whoever wins.
I kind of agree with you. Now looking at the rotation, that is a premier matchup. I think, early on in the year you had Ohtani, or not Ohtani, Syndergaard versus Verlander that first weekend of the season. That was a highly anticipated pitching matchup.
Lived
And
up to the hype too.
it lived up to the hype, and we
Yeah.
really haven't had anything close to that. So Plesac versus Ohtani is going to be probably the second of probably many high-profile matchups that the Angels are going to have to encounter this season. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Maybe if we get lucky, they could take 3 or 4. If you get 2 and then there is a toss-up game, maybe we get lucky and get 3 or 4. But 2 or 4 sounds fair.
The crazy thing is, the homestands is actually pretty important because you look after that, it's Chicago, and then at Boston. And Cleveland just took care of Chicago like it was nothing today. I think they won their doubleheader.
Keuchel gave up 8 runs in 1+ inning.
Yeah, and Chicago's still a really good team though. So it's and Boston's still Boston. So and it's always tough to win at Fenway. So this homestand is actually kind of important. It doesn't really get easy for the Angels. They need to really take care of business against Baltimore and then be the team that cools off Cleveland.
Now, on your prediction bingo card, do you have anything for the pitching or hitting? Any surprising performances or any weird bingo intentional walks? I don't know. You tell me.
Joe Madden will walk the bases loaded twice in the ninth.
He's issuing 4 intentional walks in one game to Jose Ramirez.
Let's say, I think Ohtani's going to keep picking it up and get that average up and maybe collect a couple more home runs. Maybe in the Baltimore series. Let's say Tyler Wade goes yard. Let's make a crazy one. First of the year, Wade goes yard.
And what is the over-under if he does hit a home run on his sprint around the bases? Will he take his time or will he speed run through the 4 bases?
You know he's going to be speedy.
Yeah, I don't think
he'll be
that guy
too much
knows
in shock.
anything else.
Yeah, he might be in shock at that point. But yeah, the Angels schedule, it does not get easy after this homestand. They go to Chicago to take on the White Sox. They go to Boston, but then they come home and take on the Nationals and the Tampa Bay Rays before a 2-week trek against just Oakland and Texas, some at home and some on the road. And then
they're going to need to come up on those games right there.
Oakland is a weird can of worms. And then you get to the end of the month and you have 3 with Toronto, who's been red hot at home. And then you got
4 against Toronto.
Oh, pardon me, 4 against
Yeah.
Toronto. And then you got to go to New York and take on the Yankees. So it doesn't get easy. I think Baltimore, I don't want to call it a trap series just because they're kind of a lonely AL East cellar dweller a little bit. You're hot right now, but then you kind of have an off day that might cool you off. So it might take game 1 to get back into the swing of things. But the rest of April, I think it really starts with the Cleveland Guardians series with that tough pitching, because you're going to get tough pitching when you go to the White Sox and the Red Sox. You're going to get tough pitching when Tampa Bay comes to town, when Toronto comes to town. And the Yankees are just, the Yankees. And then guess what? Oakland always has been a thorn in the Angels' side, regardless of who they put out on the field. They could put a couple of high schoolers out there and the Angels might have trouble against them. Opportunity is a knocking. An 8-5 start for the Angels thus far in their first 13 games. First place. Let's all say it together. First place in the American League West, a +9 run differential, 5-2 road trip. They took 2 of 3 from Houston, which is probably one of the best thing. I probably should have wrote this down in my notes. When was the last time they took a series against the Houston Astros?
Yeah, they swept Houston in 4 games in September of 2020.
September of 2020.
I do remember that series.
Oh, is that the one Mike Trout got 300 home runs?
I believe it was.
Okay. So there you have it. David Goodkind coming in with the clutch information. The last time the Angels took a series from the Houston Astros was pandemic. We were wearing masks. There was nobody in attendance at Angel Stadium. So in a weird way, it couldn't have been proven, but thankfully we have television in 2020. September of 2020, the Angels. So it's been about a year and a half since the Angels took their last series against the Houston Astros, but it happened in this road trip. So all good things, as Olaf from Disney's Frozen would say. But as we look at it now, the Angels return home after a day off tomorrow, 3 against the Baltimore Orioles, 4 against the Cleveland Guardians. Our predictions for prediction bingo are in. We'll see how they do next week. But until the next Sports Mouth podcast episode, as we discuss all thing Angels right now, I know myself, Dominick Lorenz, Cole Bailey, David Goodkind, and our friends Taylor Array and Ariana Evans, we are working slowly but surely on a new blogging Angels site that will come to you hopefully within the next month to get you all things Angels since our interesting departure, to say the least, in that aspect. But for right now, you can follow all of us on social media. And Cole, I forgot to ask you this earlier when we introduced you in the show. What is your social media account?
I am at CGB123 on Twitter.
That is where all the good Angel social media is going to come from. Cole, I'm SportsMouth95. David, remind the folks at home once again your Twitter handle.
You can find me at DGoodkindCSUF.
There we go. The 3 social media sites have been broadcasted to you guys at home. Follow us for all good Angels content. And we hope the Angels have a good homestand against Baltimore and Cleveland. And until the next homestand is complete, we'll come on back and do this all again for a Halos homestand recap. But until then, I'm Dominick Lorenz. That's Cole Bailey. That's David Goodkind. The Angels are in first place. We can celebrate through the first 2 weeks of the year. And until next time, this is the Sports Mouth Podcast.